Now, some of you may have seen my series called Pedophile, and from there I did a clip which somehow ended up on MasterChan, and all sorts of whinging and moaning carried on from there because MasterChan is well known for its pedophilia. Users, adherents, Chan fans. But, I like to keep an eye on these Chans to see what they come up with. There was a thread I saw on MasterChan related to commercial child pornography. And even though, if you're watching this, you might be thinking, oh well, that'll never happen. But actually it has happened in the past. In 1969, Denmark legalized all forms of pornography without exception, and that includes child pornography. From 1969 to 1971, it was the heyday of child pornography. And actually, there was child pornography produced until 1979, so for a period of 10 years. Now, you may be thinking, well, people got sick of it and had it outlawed. But actually, no. The reason why child pornography sank after 1971 was because it was not commercially viable. There was not enough pedophiles buying child pornography to make it worthwhile for any pornographer to engage in this. So at best, from 1969 to 1979, child pornography was, for want of a better word, decriminalised. In this same sort of manner is the police have discretion to act in the prevention of child pornography being sold or being made publicly available. You may be thinking, well, Denmark, they're just some sort of European country. But I'll tell you this, even to this day, you have, in some respects, but not especially so, bestiality pornography. You also have animal brothels in Denmark, which operate like normal brothels, except people pay money to have sex with dogs. So it's not really a moral or legal issue per se. It's rather one of commercial viability. And this, I believe, will see child pornography under the same sort of the legal basis, possibly on a global scale. These days you have nudist magazines which show children naked. You also have naked children under what's called art exhibits. And we can throw in I suppose you'd say, the trend for sexting, where children send pictures of themselves naked via phones as picture messages. So just to say, oh well, it'll never happen, history shows it has happened, and history will show that these things will continue to happen. And as for pedophilia being legal, well, considering some of the, suppose you say, Islamic countries, for want of a better word, that we are covering Africa and the Middle East, and indeed Asia to an extent, that child brides are not rare. And with all these so-called refugees making their way into Europe, and the way that governments will bend over backwards, so to speak, to accommodate them, we could very well see the lowering of the age of consent for marriage and indeed sex. It's not only so-called refugees who push for this. This is coming from within what you call white European governments. And we see this on the left-wing side of politics. We see parties like the Greens who are all in favour for this. The only thing stopping the so-called right-wing political parties is the commercial viability. If it makes money, they'll be all for it. They don't care. Morals simply don't come into the picture. And the legalities regarding any of this, especially with child pornography, could be circumnavigated by trade agreements. We've got these international trade agreements and international law which overrides national law. So let me give you an example. Let's say a child pornography producer makes magazines. Now, if they come for plain cover and are shrink wrapped and then sent to pornography stores, they cannot be inspected because that would be a violation of a trade agreement. Even though officially child pornography would be outlawed, until the person who buys the magazine actually takes the shrink wrap off and opens up that magazine and sees that it is child pornography, then in theory no law has actually been broken. So a pedophile can buy a magazine, shrink wrapped, plain cover, and may not open it until they get inside their own home. Now, unless the police are in there waiting for that person to open up the shrink wrap, then legally no law has actually been broken. It would need a police warrant to actually burst into a home and hope to catch the pedophile looking at child pornography. And the ability of the police to basically sweat on a pedophile 24/7, and the ability to have continuous search warrants is impossible, and most likely would not be approved. But the thing that makes child pornography, the reason why it went belly up in Denmark, because there were not enough pedophiles spending money on child pornography. This caused a bit of a drought in regards to child pornography, and with the child pornography we are seeing now, especially with people using iPhones and cheap video cameras and so on, the ability to produce that child pornography is starting to increase. Whereas before it was all done on cheap equipment, the children involved were those who were unfortunate to be born into a particular family or have a family that associated with certain people. If it becomes commercialized, then it'll provide a greater range of models who would probably have parents who would rent them out in order to do this, in order to get money. But the base of the consumer of child pornography would have to be pedophiles. Now, there is nothing in the human DNA or chromosomes which would incline one to be a pedophile. This is a choice. There's no chemical imbalance, no hormones which makes you do this sort of thing. It is a choice. So in order for child pornography to become commercially viable, the amount of pedophiles has to increase. And now we are seeing on the darknet e-books. One's called the Pedophile's Handbook, and the other one is called the Pedophile's Manual. And we see people on the chats spamming and giving all sorts of links to file hosting sites for child pornography, and it's free. So to try and hook people into this sort of stuff. Anyway, apart from that, myself, I think you should examine this because I believe this is part of the end times. Now, 11 months ago, I did a series called End Times regarding to Revelation and to the end of the earth. And, the things I see now, just point me to the direction that this is actually occurring. We could see child pornography becoming legal, or at the very least decriminalised. We see more insanity. If you walk down the street, you'll see people talking to themselves, yelling at themselves. And it's not just some crazy old drunk with cooking sherry. These are people you would naturally assume are just normal. And I've seen this myself on many times. People walking down the street screaming and yelling to no one. We are seeing what you would call the forces of evil. They're operating on multiple fronts, and these things are all starting to join together. So, something is up and something is wrong. So I'm not going to give you some sort of religious pitch. I'm not going to try and tout some religion to you. Whether you believe what I say or not, that's up to you. I'm not going to compel you to believe it, nor expect you to. you check this for yourself. So I've got my End Time series on my YouTube channel, but there's probably a couple more things I want to point out, and we will see that pedophilia and indeed the religions, seem to be operating. But in my pedophile series, I did pedophile 3A, which is in regards to Judaism. But I'm going to really do a number on them, because as far as I'm concerned, Judaism is now so perverted it should not even be counted as an Abrahamic faith. Most Jews are atheists, and if you read the Babylonian Talmud, you will see that pedophilia is okay by them, and if you're not a Jew, you're basically filth. You want to know where an Antichrist will come from? Well, the Orthodox Church says the Antichrist will be a Jew. And looking at the things that are occurring because of, I suppose you say, Jewishness, I find it hard to disagree.